Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatvam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charana Ravindam Prapta Sakalyana Gurnana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrinam Vande Guru Shri Charanaravrinam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Mahaprabhu Gita Vaditra Madhyam Ramancha Kampasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Vande Guru Shri Shri Vigrahara Tana Nityanana Shringaratanama Niramajanado Shri Juktasya Bhaktam Sa Niyonjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Juktasya Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Satvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavat Prasado Satvana Triptam Kridvaiva Tripti Vajato Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Shiradikama Vabayara Para Madhuralila Gunarupa Namna Shiradika Madhuralila Gunarupa Namna Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravindam Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Nekunjayuno Pratikeli Siddhai Jayali Virjukti Apekshaniya Nekunjayuno Pratikeli Tatrati daksha oti valabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Sakcha dharitena Shamasta Shashre Ruktastathava Vataiva Sadhavi Sakya dharitena Shashre Ruktastathava Kintu Pravarja Priya eva tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Kintu Vande Guru Shri Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasada Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutapi Jayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Jayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachatari Shatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Vadi Pachatari Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Nama Krishna Jadavaya Namaha Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namaha Gopal Govindaram Shrimadu Sudam Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghuna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Radha, Nilamadava Radha, Nilamadava Radhe, Radha, Nilamadava Radha. Jayo Jagannath, Jayo Baladeva, Jayo Subhadrama, Jayo Sudarshan Chakra. Jaya Sitaram, Jayo Sitaram, Sitaram, Jayo Lakshman Hanuman. Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Lakshmi Narasingha, Lakshmi Narasingha, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Gaur Pramanande Haribo. Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhajakacharya. His Divine Grace of Bhojanavinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakacharya Vaishnava Siromani Patipavan Srila Prabhupada Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Guru Guru Gandha Vishnudhar Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakti Raghunath Shri Ji Bhagopala Bhakti Das Guna Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavrind Ki Jai. Jai Param Dayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Jai Pramanam Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mavrana Avatar Ki Jai. Golokera Pramadhan Hari Nam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai. Jug Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Brihat Midanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopukupna Radha Kunsam Kun Giriraj Gobodhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai. Deloship Shri Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai. Shri Shri Mayapur Navadvip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai. Jai Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Shri Purushottam Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadhari Sudarshan Chakra Stannan Yatra Maho Mahotsava Ki Jai. Shri Ram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman Ji Ki Jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishangarev Govan Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulasi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Mati Radharani Ki Jai. Shamavita Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaurari Pramanande. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glories to the Assembly Bodies. All glory to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Dayine. Prahlada Dayine. Hiranyakasipu Bhaksha. Hiranyakasipu Bhaksha. Silatanka nakalaye. Jaya Silatanka nakalaye. Ito nisingo parato nisinga. Ito nisingo parato nisinga. Jato jato jami tato nisinga. Jayo jato jato jami tato nisinga. Bairi nisinga, hrudaye nisinga. Bair nisinga, hrudaye nisinga. Narasingha Madim Sharanam Prapade. Tabakara Kamala Bare Nakam Adavutta Sringa Dalita Hiranyakasipo Tanabringa Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadi Sare Jai Jagadi Sare Jai Jagadi Sare Pavakara Kamavare Nakam Adavutta Sringa Dalita Hiranyakasipo Ganabringa Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadi Share Jai Jagadi Share Jai Jagadi Share Kesavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadi Share Jai Jagadi Share Jai Jagadi Share Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadi Share Jai Jagadi Share Jai Jagadi Share Jaya Nishingade Jaya Nishingade Nishingade Jaya Nishingade Jaya Narahari Jaya Narahari Narahari Jaya Narahari Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj जय श्री श्री भक्ति पथ सर्वविघ्नाशन कनि सिंह भगवान की जय। भक्त श्रेष्ठ प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। श्री नाम संकीर्तन जय की जय। निताय गौरारी प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदाई तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
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 नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूरा न हो।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूरा हो।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वृंदावनवासी
कृपा करे करतरे वृंदावनवासी
मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास
मोराए विलास कुंज यवा
नयने हरिवो सदा जुगल रूपरासी
अमिनयने निभो सदा जुगल रूपरासी
এই নিবেদনা ধারো সাখীর অনুগাতা করো
एने वेदाना धारा सकीरायनो कथा करो
সেবাধিকারা দিয়ে করো নিজ দাসী
सेवायादि कार दिए करने जदासी
दीना कृष्णा दासे कोए जीना मोरा होए
न कृष्ण दास कोई ये न मोरा
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा नवासी
श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जीना भासी
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा नवासी
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
जानि कानि सा पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादि कनिषा तनि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
तानि कानि सा पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादि कनिषा तनि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
तानि कानि सा पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादि कनिषा तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय, तुलसी महारानी जय, तुलसी महारानी
जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी।
जय वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी
जय वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी जय, वृंदा देवी।
नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल, हरि बोल, हरि बोल, नित्य गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
श्री वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य कृष्ण भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। वृंदायै तुलसी देवाय प्रियायै केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रादे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की। Oh Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you as wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan. Thus within my vision, I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a forward time again as your wife. Please give me the privilege of your service and make me my servant. Jagadish-kamai Mama Janmani Janmanishwari Bhavata Bhakti Rahaitu Kitvai Padhanam Gata Gata Rudaya Gira Ulakayin Chitam Bapu Kada Tavanamagahane Bhavisati Chugayitam Nimeshena Chakyusha Prabhusahitam Sunyahitam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Virahiname Asli Shvapadaраtam Pinastunam Adarshanaad Marmahatam Karatuva Chatatatava Vidadatulam Patu Matpranatastu Saivana Para Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sri Krishna Ki Jai. Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Purati Krishna. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana. Cleanses the heart, all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life or repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it sprays the rays from the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by holy names. But I am so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind,
thinking oneself lower than the
street, one should be more tolerant than the tree, devoid all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causes towards your service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj, I am your eternal servitor. Yes, some or other will fall in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at the lotus feet. O my Lord, why will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Why will my voice choke up, and will the hairs and my body stand on end at the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord,
and he shall remain so, even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutili Simhate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi.
There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1.
To blaspheme the devotees who dedicate their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord.
2.
To consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to or independent of Lord Vishnu.
3.
To disobey the orders of
the spiritual master. 4.
To blaspheme the Vedic literature, or literature pursuant to the Vedic version.
5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord. 7.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are offered in Vedas as fruitive activities of karma kanda.
9.
To instruct the faithless person about the glories of the holy name.
And 10.
To not have complete faith in the chanting of holy names, and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be intent while chanting. Every devotee claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us offer our most humble obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of one, and therefore compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kipasindubhyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Namo Vishnu Padari Krishna Vastai Bhuti Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Nirvisesa Sundivadi Paskati Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmadhyasya yato nivayat itaratascha teso vigyaswarat.
Janmadhyasya yatam vayaritartascha tirsvavigyasvara.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yatsurayaha.
Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Yasuraya.
Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha.
Tejo Parimridan Jata Vinimayo Jatra Trisagurmisya.
Damna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
Namna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of
O
Vasudeva.
all-pervading personality Godhead.
O all-pervading personality of God.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
Offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth
and the primeval cause of all causes,
and the primeval cause of all
of
causes,
the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations,
He is directly, indirectly conscious for all
and
manifestations.
he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond
It
him.
is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji,
It is the only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji,
the original living being.
the original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
As one is bewildered by the illusory
As
representation
one is bewildered by the illusory
of water seen
representation
on fire or land seen on water.
of water, seen the fire, land, sea, and water.
Only because of him do the material universes,
Only because of him do the material universe,
temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature,
temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature,
appear factual although they are unreal.
appear factual, although they
I
are.
therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna,
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord
who is
Shri
eternally
Krishna,
existent in the transcendental abode,
which is eternally existent in transcendental
which is
abode,
forever free from the illusory representations of the
which is forever free from the illusory representation.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon absolute.
Dharma Pujita Kaitravota
Dharma Pujita Kato,
Paramo Nimatsaranam Satam
Paramahanyamasaranam,
Vedyam Vastu Mamatra Vastu
Vedyam Vastavam Astra Vastu,
Shivadanta Patrayon Mulana
Shivadam Taputurimlanam,
Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite
Srimad Bhagavate Maham,
Kim Vapare Ishwaraha
Kim Vaparishwara,
Sadyo Hridaya Varudite Tra
Sadya Rudya Varidya
Ti
Titra,
Bihisa Susavistakshanat.
Ritivhi Shishuravistatyana,
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activities which are material motivated.
This Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Puran propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those who are fully pure.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth, the reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare
Such
of all.
truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the four miseries.
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled with great sage Vyasadeva in
is
maturity
sufficient in itself for God
is
realization.
sufficient itself for God realization.
What is the need of any other
What
scripture?
is the need of the other
As
scripture?
soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
As soon as one attentively submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam,
by this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpaturo galitam phalam, sukhamukad amrita drabya samyutam,
Shukam
pibatam Bhagavatam rasam alaya,
Vivata Bhagavatam Rasamaya.
muhur aho raskabhu vibhavakaha.
O
O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
excellent thoughtful man, relish Shema
the
Bhagavatam,
mature fruit of the desired truth Vedic literature.
and the Jupu desired to Vedic
It
literature.
emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva
It
Goswami.
emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva
Therefore, this
Goswami.
fruit has become even more tasteful.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful.
Although its nectarine juice was already relishable for
Although
all,
its nectarine juice was so relishable for all,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shrivatam Swakata Krishna.
Shrivantam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Vidyantak Stohya Bhadrani.
Vidyantasto Hyabhadani.
Vidunoti Srihitsatam.
Vidunoti Suritsatam.
To hear about Vedic literature, to hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
You hear about Krishna from the Vedic literature,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita.
is itself righteous activity.
It is self-righteous activity.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
One who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's heart,
acts as a best wishing friend,
acts as the best wishing
and
friend,
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in the
Nasta
hearing.
presu abhadresu
Nasta Preshwa Bhadrishu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Seva
bhagavati uttama sloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
bhakti bhavati naistiki.
Bhakti Bhavati Nastiki.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the
and
devotees,
from the devotees,
he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastumo bhava
Tadarajastamo Bhava
kamalobhadayasche
Kamalobhadayascha
cheta etajanabhidam
Chetaitaranavidam
stitvam sattve prasidati.
Tam Save Prasidati.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional service,
one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from the melody, passion, and
and
ignorance.
thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
And this material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manasu
Evam prasanamanaso
Bhagavad Bhakti Yogitaha
Bhagavad Bhakti Yoga
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana
Bhagavad Tattva Vijnana
Sangasya Jayate.
Mukta Sanghasya Jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure
the
goodness.
candidate remains steady in the position of pure
Becomes
goodness,
enlivened by devotional
becomes
service
enlivened by devotional
and
service,
understands the science of God perfectly.
and understand the science of God perfectly.
Vidyate Hridaya Grantis
Vidyati Hridaya Grantis
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya
Chidyante Sarva Samshaya
Shriyante Chasya Karmani
Jayante Chasya
Mr.
Karmani
Evatmanishware.
Drusta Eva Manish.
Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
That's the Bhakti Yoga service of heart of the mature.
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samadram,
Enable us to come at once to the stage of Samsham Samadhyam,
understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead.
understanding the supreme absolute true personality of Godhead.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna. Shri Guru Vastika prayers. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy.
The students are receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy.
Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it,
Just as cloud pours water on the forest fire just to extinguish
so
it.
the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted worlds
So it must deliver the material afflicted world
by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
by extinguishing the blazing fire of material
From our
existence.
respectful base unto the lotus feet is such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
After my respectful blessings unto the Lord of such a spiritual master, who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments.
Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his heart,
because he's relishing the melody of pure devotion within
within
his
his
mind.
mind. Yeah. Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes bodily hair stand on end.
He feels quivering in his body,
He feels quivering in his
and
body,
tears flow from his eyes like waves.
and tears flow from his
I
eyes.
offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
Offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a
The
spiritual
spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna.
Spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha, and
He also engages his disciples in such worship.
he also engages his disciples in such worship.
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord.
clean the temple and perform other similar worship
I
of
offer
the
my
Lord.
respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a
The
spiritual master.
spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
Spiritual master is offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food.
Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sought.
Analyze that which is leaks, chewed, drunk.
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada,
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada,
he is satisfied.
he is
I
satisfied.
offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus feet as such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava.
Spiritual master is eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes Shri Radhika and Madhava,
And their qualities, names, and forms.
and about their quality names,
The
forms.
spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tastes or arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopi who in different times make tasteful arrangement for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs.
Within the groves of Vrindavan,
Within the groves of
I
Vrindavan.
offer my most humble obeisances unto the Lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my most respectful obeisance unto the Lotus to such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servant of the Lord.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus feet of my spiritual
At
master.
least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance to the Lotus feet of my spiritual master.
So today we're going to start also reciting just a few verses of the Brahma Samhita. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Nadiradir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. Go ahead.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karanakaranam.
Chintamani Prakara Satmasakalpa Vriksha
Chintamani Viksha
Laksha Vrite Susrabirabhipalayantam
Lakshya Videsi Surabit Abhipalayantam
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrama Sevyamanam
Lakshmi Sasha Satasambhrama Shivamanam
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Venam Vanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham
Venum Kranantam Aravinda Dayalataksham
Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam
Param Bastantam Achitam Vasudanangam
Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Visesha Subham
Gandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Alola Chandra Kalasatvanamayavansi
Alola Chandrika Lasat Tamamsi
Ratnangidam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam
Nangam
Shyamam Tribangala Vitani Tapakasam
Shama Tribanga Lalitam Niyapraktimasi
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti
Anganiyasha Sakalendriya Vrittimanti
Pasyanti Panti Chiram Jaganti
Ashanti
Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya
Ananda Chinmaya Rasad
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam
Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam
Adyam Purana Purusham Nabhayovanamja
Adyam Purana Purusham Navajo Napanamcha
Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Vakto
Vedeshu Durlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakta
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Antastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Munipungamanam Sopyasti Yat Prapadasim Avichintya Tatve Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagadanda Kotim Yaschaktirastis Jagadanda Chayayadanta Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Yad Bhava Bhavita Yo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayanubhusa Suktaryameva Nikama Pratitaistuvanti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, Verse number 6. Naham Veda Param Yasmin Na Param Na Samam Vibho
Na Param Na Samam Vibho
Nama Rupa Gunair Bhavyam
Nama Rupa Gunai Bhavyam
Sadasat Kinchit Ayataha
Sada Satkincha
Anyataha. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics, and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior, or equal, eternal, or temporary, is not created from any source other than that of your Lordship, thou so great. So he's speaking to Brahma here. That's Narada Muni. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The manifested world is full of varieties of created beings in 8,400,000 species of life. And some of them are superior and inferior to others. In human society, the human being is considered to be the superior living being. And amongst the human beings, there are also different varieties, good, bad, equal, etc. But Narada Muni took it for granted that none of them has any source of generation besides his father, Brahmaji. Therefore, he wanted to know all about them from Lord Brahma. Text 7. Sabhavam acharad goram yatapas susamahita tena kedaya senastvam parasankam chayachasi. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Yet, we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities in perfect discipline. although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Following in the footsteps of Sri Narada Muni, one should not blindly accept his spiritual master as God himself. A spiritual master is duly respected on a par with God, but a spiritual master claiming to be God himself should at once be rejected. Narada Muni accepted Brahma as the supreme due to Lord Brahma's wonderful acts in creation. But doubts arose in his mind when he saw that Lord Brahma also worshipped some superior authority. The supreme is supreme, and he has no worshipable superior. The ahangrahopasita, or the one who worships himself with the idea of becoming God himself, is misleading. But the intelligent disciple can at once detect that the Supreme God does not need to worship anyone, including himself, in order to become God. Ahangrahopasana may be one of the processes for transcendental realization, but the ahangrahopasita can never be God himself. No one becomes God by undergoing a process of transcendental realization. Narada Muni thought of Brahmaji as the Supreme Person, but when he saw Brahmaji engaged in a process of transcendental realization, doubts arose in his mind, so he wanted to be clearly informed. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities and perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation. So this is a very significant point about how to recognize a bona fide spiritual master and how to respect the spiritual master on par with the Supreme Lord Krishna, but not to misunderstand the spiritual master to be Krishna himself or God. This is not understood by everyone. By most people, they don't understand the unique position of Krishna. That's what we're trying to do by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, which unequivocally explains the unique position of Krishna, that no one is equal to or no one is greater than, and everyone is subordinate to him. This is Vaishnava philosophy. And therefore, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, 18th verse, which says, "And because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle disciple. Therefore, you can tell us all that you have scientifically learned from them." So this is about Sukadeva Goswami. And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, the secret of success in spiritual life, the secret of success in spiritual life is satisfying the spiritual master and thereby getting his sincere blessings. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur has sung in his famous 8 stanzas on the spiritual master as follows: "I offer my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Only by his satisfaction can one please the personality of Godhead, and when he is dissatisfied, there is only havoc in the path of spiritual realization." So this is an alternate translation to the last verse of the Shri Guru Vastika. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise my spiritual master, and at least 3 times a day I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. So this is an alternate translation. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Only by his satisfaction can one please the personality of Godhead, and when he is dissatisfied, there's only havoc in the path of spiritual realization. It is essential, therefore, that a disciple be very much obedient and submissive to the bona fide spiritual master. Srila Sutta Goswami fulfilled all these qualifications as a disciple, and therefore he was endowed with all favors by his learned and self-realized spiritual masters, such as Srila Vyasadeva and others. The sages of Namaskar were confident that Srila Sutta Goswami was bona fide. Therefore, they were anxious to hear from him. So, Bhagavatam was first, let's say, spoken by Vyasadeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to his son, Sukadeva Goswami, who then spoke it to sages in Naimisharanya, in which also Sutta Goswami was present. Okay, so the secret of success in spiritual life is satisfying the spiritual master and thereby getting his sincere blessings. Also, in the first canto, 18th chapter, 3rd verse, it says, furthermore, after leaving all his associates, the king surrendered himself as a disciple to the son of Vyasa, Sukadeva Goswami, and thus he was able to understand the actual position of the personality of Godhead, and at last gave up his material body on the banks of the Ganges. So this is about Maharaj Parikshit. And it says, the word Ajita is significant here. The personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is known as Ajita, or unconquerable. And he is so in every respect. No one can know his actual position. He is unconquerable by knowledge also. We have heard about his Dhamma, or place, eternal Goloka Vrindavana. But there are many scholars who interpret this abode in different ways. But by the grace of a spiritual master like Sukadeva Goswami, unto whom the king gave himself up as a most humble disciple, one is able to understand the actual position of the Lord, his eternal abode, and his transcendental paraphernalia in that Dhamma or abode. So you see, this is benediction of spiritual master. One can actually understand the unique position of Krishna. We can't understand everything about Krishna because his qualities are always expanding. But we can understand the unique position of Krishna that no one else can emulate. No one even comes close to emulating him in his transcendental qualities, pastimes, and powers, and in every way, in knowledge, beauty, fame, wealth, etc. Knowing the transcendental position of the Lord and the transcendental method by which one can approach the transcendental Dhamma, or the abode of the Lord, the king was confident about his ultimate destination, and by knowing this, he could leave aside everything material, even his own body. Now, do you know anyone that can leave aside all his material assets? You know anybody like that? I don't either. The only person I know is Srila Prabhupada, who did that. He gave away all his material assets and began to preach Krishna consciousness with 0 rupees. He came to America with a few rupees only, not worth more than $7. That's coming with nothing to America. How far can $7 get you? Even today, it wouldn't get you very far. But Maharaj Parikshit, after hearing about the transcendental position of the Lord and the transcendental method by which one can approach that transcendental Dhamma or abode, the king was confident about its ultimate destination, and by knowing this, he could leave aside everything material, even his own body, without any difficulty of attachment. Now, I don't know anybody like this except Srila Prabhupada. And giving everything up, even his own body, right, without any difficulty of attachment. Without attachment. When you're attached to something, just like one time, this man said, "Oh, Prabhu, I want to give you a donation." I said, "Okay." He said, "I want to give you a check," and he handed it like this. So when I went to grab it, he pulled it back. And I was shocked when he did that. And then he said, "Oh, no, I want to give this to you." I mean, he had difficulty giving it, right? But here it says, without any difficulty of attachment, Maharaj Pariksit gave everything up. Because once he understood the transcendental, Krishna's transcendental abode, Krishna's transcendental position as the Supreme Lord, and Krishna's and the transcendental method by which one can approach the transcendental Dhamma, or the transcendental abode of the Lord. That's called Bhakti Yoga, pure devotional service, not in any way contaminated by karma, jnana, or yoga, or mystic powers. In the Bhagavad Gita it is stated, Param dristva nivartate, Vishaya vinivartante nirahara siddhina. Asavajam asapyasya param dristva nivartate. The Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter. One can give up all connection with material attachment when one is able to see the param, or the superior quality of things. The superior quality of what things? Of chanting Hare Krishna, of regularly hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, eating only prasadam. Just like I told the story before, I did a house blessing for this one lady. I think she was in either Kent or Burien. And when everything was over, she said, "Oh, Prabhu, please come and have some prasad." I said, "Okay, but can you answer a question first?" She said, "Yes, what is it?" I said, "Did you make the prasad?" She said, No, I didn't make it." I said, "Who made it?" She said, "Oh, I ordered it from the Taj Mahal restaurant." I said, "Do you know who the cook is?" She said, "Yeah, oh, he's a very nice man. His name is Ahmed." I said, "Oh, okay. I think I'm going to skip prasad today." She said, "Oh, why is that?" I said, "Well, I mean, do you really think Ahmed can make prasad?" She said, "Well, he's an excellent cook." I said, "I don't doubt that." I said, "I know he's an excellent cook, but is what he makes prasad?" She said, "Well, I mean, we call it prasad." I said, "That's the problem right there." All food is not prasad. Prasad is a special thing. It's prepared by someone who has love and devotion for Krishna, and who prepares it with love and devotion, and offers it with love and devotion, saying bona fide prayers. Prayers to the spiritual master, and to glorifying Krishna, and so forth. So, prasad is a special thing. Everything is not prasad. Just like anything that shines is not gold. So we have to be very careful about what is prasad and what is not prasad. So from the Bhagavad Gita, we understand the quality of the Lord's energy, and that is superior to the material quality of energy. And by the grace of the bona fide spiritual master like Sukadeva Goswami, it is quite possible to know everything of the superior energy of the Lord, by which the Lord manifests his eternal name, quality, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Unless one thoroughly understands this superior or eternal energy of the Lord, it is not possible to leave the material energy. There you go. This is why very few people actually become pure devotees. It's only because of attachment. This is mine. That is mine. Everything is mine. I did this and I did that. See, I. My. Mine. See, this is called aham. It's called that I, me, and mine syndrome. See, and everyone is under this illusory concept of I, me, and mine. By the way, when you die, do you take anything with you? Yeah, you take something with you. You take your karma with you. And it's always going to be a mixed bag of good and bad. And for some people, it's all bad. For some people, it's good and bad. And for some people, it's mostly good and some bad. It's very rare that there's no bad. So even one little bad thing, like illicit sex, gambling, intoxication, meat eating, insulting devotees, there's so many offenses that one can commit that are bad, and that keeps a person in the world, in this material world. One has to be completely free of all sinful reactions in order to even engage in devotional service. Right? That's 7th chapter, 28th verse. Just to engage in bhakti yoga, one has to be freed of all sinful reactions. And then, to progress in bhakti yoga, one has to be completely surrendered to the bona fide spiritual masters, Shiksha and Diksha gurus, and never be puffed up, never be arrogant, never be offensive, never be, let's say, led by the false ego, never be surrendered to false masters like lust, anger, greed, envy, madness, and illusion. One has to be freed of all these things in order to be engaged continually in devotional service. And then it says, unless one thoroughly understands the superior or eternal energy of the Lord, it is not possible to leave the material energy. However, one may theoretically speculate on the true nature of the absolute truth. Yeah, everybody is speculating. I think. Whenever someone says, I think, you should understand, I stink. Who cares what you think or what I think? We should only care about what Krishna says. Just like yesterday someone came to the farm and he said that let's see, what did he say? I have to get this straight because it's very interesting the way he phrased it. He said, you're always speaking about Krishna. I said, well, I said, not exactly. But you can't say I am always trying to follow Krishna's instructions. Because you don't learn by speaking, you learn by hearing. Okay? And therefore, no, that wasn't exactly what he said. What did he say? I have to think about what he said. He said something, but I told him, no, I'm always trying. Yeah. He said something like, you're always speaking about Krishna. I said, no, I'm always trying to hear what Krishna says. There's a big difference. Because a person can speculate and speak blah, 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 blah. But what's more important is hearing what Krishna says and hearing what's spoken about Krishna. There's Shruti and Smriti. So Shruti is what Krishna says, and Smriti is what is spoken by Krishna, like what is spoken by Vyasadeva, or what is spoken by Sukadeva Goswami or Sutta Goswami or bona fide acharyas. So that should be our main qualification. We're always eager to hear and chant about the glories of the Lord. Not so much we are, not so much speculating, or we shouldn't speculate at all. Anyway, it says, by the grace of Lord Krishna, Maharaj Parikshit was able to receive the mercy of such a personality as Sukadeva Goswami, and thus he was able to know the actual position of the unconquerable Lord. It is very difficult to find the Lord from the Vedic literatures, but it is very easy to know him by the mercy of a liberated devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. So, someone says, oh, I'm reading Bhagavatam every day. Okay, very good. But here it says, it is very difficult to find the Lord from the Vedic literatures, but it is very easy to know him by the mercy of a liberated devotee like Sukadeva Goswami. So it's not only reading, it's hearing. That's why I told this gentleman, I said, I'm always trying to hear about Krishna from my guru and from bona fide devotees. Okay, so then also in the second canto, 8th chapter, 1st verse, a very interesting point again about spiritual master, because the subject today is the spiritual master. And it says, King Parikshit inquired from Sukadeva Goswami, how did Narada Muni, whose hearers are as fortunate as those instructed by Lord Brahma, explain the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is without material qualities, and before whom did he speak? And the purport Prabhupada says, Devarshi Narada was directly instructed by Brahmaji, who was also directly instructed by the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the instructions imparted by Narada to his various disciples are as good as those of the Supreme Lord. That is the way of understanding Vedic knowledge. It comes down from the Lord by disciplic succession, and this transcendental knowledge is distributed to the world by this descending process. So here's a major difference. When you go to these nonsense schools, all their knowledge is ascending, but spiritual knowledge is descending. Krishna speaks and it descends through the parampara to us today, through Srila Prabhupada and coming to us. This is a descending process of knowledge, whereas the material knowledge is ascending. Someone sees something and says, oh, just like, who was it? Galileo. He went up to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Some people say the Leaning Tower of Pizza, but it's not pizza, it's Pisa. And it's a leaning tower, so he wanted to see, try to understand gravity. So he took some kind of a ball and he dropped it from the lower part, because it's called the leaning tower. So it's leaning on its foundations like this. So he dropped it from the lower part and he dropped it from the higher part. And it seemed as if both came to the ground at the same time. So this was very interesting for him. And he was trying to understand why. Well, this is your homework for tomorrow. Find out how he learned something about gravity from the Leaning Tower of Pisa. Or you might look it up right now. Pisa is spelled P-I-S-A, not P-I-Z-Z-A. It's not Leaning Tower of Pizza, because everything is not pizza in Italy. So then it says here, it comes down from the Lord by disciplic succession, and this transcendental knowledge is distributed to the world by this descending process. There's no chance, however, to receive the Vedic knowledge from mental speculators. So in other words, you're not going to learn anything about Krishna by going to these different schools. Even if you get a PhD, you will not really learn anything about Krishna. You can only learn about Krishna from the parampara, the disciplic succession, and meeting a bona fide guru and gurus, Siksha and Diksha gurus, who speak only correctly what Krishna has said and has been passed down to Brahma. The same thing was passed to Narada, the same was passed to Vyasa, and coming all the way down through the Goswami, Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis, and the modern times, the Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his son, and eventually Prabhupada, and to us. That is the way to learn. Anything else, that's because it's descending knowledge. Anything you learn in these schools is all ascending. It's all based on speculation and observation and experiments, but the most fundamental things are not scientific. For example, where did the first amoeba single cell come? They don't know for sure. They made up some story. And they think it happened because some lightning struck a primordial soup at the North Pole. This is a bunch of nonsense. That's not an explanation. And if that's a fact, why can't they reproduce it? Because you cannot have something scientific unless you experiment and show that it actually happens. They've never shown how the first amoeba appeared. And then they always skip that part and they go to, from the first amoeba, the second amoeba came, and then the fourth amoeba came, then the eighth amoeba came. All nonsense explanations, avoiding the origin. That's what modern science is. They avoid the origin because they don't know what the origin is. And they can't prove anything with experimentation. So all their knowledge is incomplete and misleading. And it's not real knowledge. Okay, so then it says that the cyclic succession, which strictly follows the transcendental instruction, is the bona fide chain of the cyclic succession. And so any parampara, if it follows the original words of Krishna, is bona fide. That means they haven't changed any of the words. But as soon as they change something, the whole lineage is nullified and not bona fide. Okay. And the test for such bona fide spiritual master is that there should be no difference between the instruction of the Lord originally imparted to his devotee and that which is imparted by the authority in the line of disciplic succession. So today, if Mr. Harivilas says something different than what Krishna said in Bhagavad Gita, he is not a spiritual master. Even one statement that is not bona fide disqualifies someone from being a spiritual master. You have to be very, very careful. And this ustadi business is very dangerous. Right? You have to be strictly aligned, and when you don't know something, you have to say, I don't know, but I will look it up, I'll find, or I'll ask some other more advanced devotee what the answer is. We cannot give false answers. Sometimes we make mistakes, everybody makes mistakes, but we should be happy to be corrected, because making mistakes continually is a disease. It's an infection, and it's not permitted. How Narada Muni distributed the transcendental knowledge of the Lord will be explained in later cantos. It will appear also that the Lord existed prior to the material creation, and therefore his transcendental name, quality, etc. do not represent any material quality. Whenever, therefore, the Lord is described as aguna, or without any quality, it does not mean that he has no quality, but that he has no material quality, such as the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, as the conditioned souls have. He is transcendental to all material conceptions, and thus he is described as aguna. Okay, and then the second canto, 9th chapter, 43rd verse, is more information about the spiritual master. And here it says, 43rd verse, Narada very much pleased his father, Brahma, and desired to know all about the energies of Vishnu, the master of all energies. For Narada was the greatest of all sages and the greatest of all devotees, O king. So, Sukadeva Goswami is instructing King Parikshit about Narada. And then the purport Prabhupada says, that's not the verse, 43. It says, the great sage Narada also inquired in detail from his father, Brahma, the great-grandfather of all the universe, after seeing him well satisfied. So you have to please the spiritual master in order to be able to ask a question and then hear the answer. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The process of understanding spiritual or transcendental knowledge from the realized person is not exactly like asking an ordinary question from the schoolmaster, from the teachers in school. The teachers in the mundane schools in modern days are paid agents for giving some information. But the spiritual master is not a paid agent, nor can he impart instructions without being authorized. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.34, the process of understanding transcendental knowledge is directed as follows. Tadvidi paripatena paripastena sevaya upadekshamite jnanam jnaninasta tattvadarshana. Arjuna was advised to receive transcendental knowledge from the realized person by surrender, questions, and service. Surrender, questions, and service. Receiving transcendental knowledge is not like exchanging dollars. Such knowledge has to be received by service to the spiritual master. Yeah, you can't buy or bribe the spiritual master. You have to serve, and sincerely and regularly, and follow principles. As Brahmaji received the knowledge directly from the Lord by satisfying him fully, similarly one has to receive the transcendental knowledge from the spiritual master by satisfying him. The spiritual master's satisfaction is the means of assimilating transcendental knowledge. One cannot understand transcendental knowledge simply by becoming a grammarian. The Vedas declare, Srutasvatara Upanishad 6.23, Yasya Devi Parabhakti Yata Devi Tata Kuru Tasyate Katitahi Artak Prakasante Mahatmanaha. Only unto one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord and to the spiritual master does transcendental knowledge become automatically revealed. So this is revelation theology. It's not ascending, it's descending. This knowledge comes down from Krishna to the disciplic succession to the disciple. And there has to be pranipat, submission to the spiritual master, paripastena, asking significant questions, and sevaya, offering service. That creates the proper environment for questions and answers. The guru is not obliged to answer any question. It's only when he sees the submissiveness and cleanliness and regularity of the disciple that he is willing to answer. Otherwise, he's not obliged to answer anything. He's not being paid. Right? Such relationship between disciple and the spiritual master is eternal. One who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master. See, that this one sentence defeats the Ritvic so-called philosophy. It's actually philosophy. It says, one who is now the disciple is the next spiritual master, if they're qualified, of course. It's a very important statement. And one cannot be a bona fide and authorized spiritual master unless one has been strictly obedient to his spiritual master. Strictly obedient. Brahmaji, as a disciple of the Supreme Lord, received the real knowledge and imparted it to his dear disciple Narada, and similarly Narada, as spiritual master, handed it over, this knowledge, to Vyasa, and so on. Therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not facsimiles of Brahma and Narada, or Narada and Vyasa. The relationship between Brahma and Narada is reality, while the so-called formality is the relation between the cheater and the cheated. So, when you go to some ruhu is a mad dog. It's not a guru. Guru is bona fide. Ruhu is a mad dog that exist in hell. So we can go to the ruhu and you offer some money, and he gives you upanayanam. You know, it's just like the parents, they take their kids to some ruhu, and he does some boohoo, and gives them the string and some mantra, but that doesn't mean anything. One takes second initiation after first initiation in Krishna consciousness, right? You don't just take an 8-year-old kid to some guru and pay him some money, and then he does ha-hoo, ha-ha-ha, and then they give him the string. It's a bunch of nonsense. See? And that's what he's talking about here. He says that, therefore, the so-called formal spiritual master and disciple are not facsimiles of Brahma and Narada, or Narada and Vyasa. The relationship between Brahma and Narada is reality, while the so-called formality is the relationship between the cheater and the cheated. The ruhu is the cheater, and the little kid or anybody who comes, and just like someone goes 30 years ago to Bhagavan Rajneesh to get initiated. That's not initiation. That's a cheater cheating a cheated. See, that's not real initiation. An initiation into what? Into illicit sex in the ashram? That's what his ashram was. It was a place of illicit sex. That's not initiation. Okay. So he says, while the so-called formality, why does he say formality? Because it's a formality. As soon as your kid is 8 years old, you take him to some ruhu, and he says some mantras and gives him a string and puts around his neck. I know people like that who have this string, but they don't follow anything. They drink, they philander, they do all the bad things, but they have the string. And twice a year they go to some ceremony where you burn the string and get a new string. It doesn't mean anything if the person doesn't follow, and if the guru is not a bona fide guru. But if you just pay him to do the ceremony, the whole reality of transmission of transcendental knowledge from guru to disciple is destroyed. It is clearly mentioned herewith that Narada is not only well-behaved, meek, and obedient, but also self-controlled. One who is not self-controlled, specifically in sex life, can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. One must have disciplinary training in controlling speaking, anger, the tongue, the mind, the belly, and the genitals. One who has controlled the particular senses mentioned above is called a Goswami. Without becoming a Goswami, one can become neither a disciple nor a spiritual master. The so-called spiritual master without sense control is certainly the cheater, and the disciple of such a so-called spiritual master is the cheated. One should not think of Brahmaji as dead great-great-grandfather, as we have experienced on this planet. He is the oldest great-grandfather, and he is still living, and Narada is also living. The age of the inhabitants of Brahmaloka planet is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita. The inhabitants of this small planet Earth can hardly calculate even the duration of one day of Brahma. Okay, we'll stop right now. There's some more to this that we can finish tomorrow. But you see, there's plenty of information of what is a bona fide disciple and what is a bona fide guru. And we have to hear this, because only such a bona fide guru can impart knowledge of Krishna's unique transcendental qualities and pastimes and powers. Unless we understand that, we will remain doubtful about giving everything up, and we won't be able to do it. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Bandho Mui Savadana Mate Devai He Bhavatoriya Jai Krishna Prati Hoya Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vaikya Chitete Koriya Kya Arana Koriya Mane Asa Shri Guru Charane Rati Ese Yutamagati He Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Shri Guru Charane Rati Hese Yutamagati He Prasade Pure Sarva Asa Chakshudan Dilaje Janme Janmi Prabhu se Chakshudan Dilaje Janme Janmi Prabhu se Divya Gyani de Prokasito Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite Avidya Vinasajate Edigay Janara Charito Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu Lokenat Lokera Jivana Lokenat Lokera Jivana Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Padachaya Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Deha More Padachaya Ebeyastu Shakti Bhuvana Ebeyastu Shakti Bhuvana Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Bola Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararaja Vichara Natala Satara Shri Srimada's Divine Grace. Sri Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Shivasati Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Maya Ki Jai. Sambhila Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Patita Pavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pracharini Namaste Swami. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. We bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet are the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of poor, and Lord and master of devotee. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter in your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavan Ki Jai. Gaura Premanandi. Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Paramahana Vishali. Aces Vivadi Paskati